Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Read and Reread. I am Angelia, and today I'm going to do my July TBR. First of all, hello, I'm back. I've been gone for a little more than a week, but I'm back and I have a lot of catching up to do. I'm really behind, but I thought I'd start with a look forward into July and the books that I'm planning to read. Because looking back, well, there's a lot of good things to say about reading, but looking back into the immediate past, I just don't want to do today. It's been a rough week. It's been a rough couple of months. To cut a long story short, my mother-in-law, who fell in April, has been declining ever since. We've made several trips. I'm really, really glad that we went to visit her a couple of weeks ago when she was still able to interact and talk and enjoy our company, and my daughter got to go on that trip because she did pass away this past weekend, and we did get there in time before that happened, and we've been there all week. The memorial service, we had to gather up some grandchildren coming in from out of the state and out of the country and get everybody there and help out my father-in-law as best we could and keep him company for a while, and now we're back. And it's just been a really sad week. There was all of that, and then I also heard about Alice, the booktuber, who also passed away. I was tagged in a tag that is in her honor that I'm going to work on in the upcoming week. And then I found out that a friend of mine from high school that we have stayed in touch with through Facebook, who had multiple medical and health issues, also passed away this week. So it's been a sad week. It's just been a really sad week. But I want to talk about things that I'm looking forward to for July. So I hope that you had a less traumatic week than I did, and I'm glad you're here. If you're new, I'm sorry to open with a big avalanche of sadness, but now I want to talk about the books that I've selected to read in July. And it is definitely a mountain of maybes because there's too many here. I try to narrow it down first by things that I know pretty much for sure I'm going to read due to different buddy reads or monthly challenge kind of things. But I also really wanted to incorporate a few additional books, and then I couldn't decide which ones. And so I have some honorary books at the end that I think I'm, like, if I had to pick today, the extra books that I would fit in, these are the ones. But I have 2 rows on my cart of alternates that my mood might change. So take it all with a entire shaker of salt, not just a grain, because I might change my mind. But let's take a look. First of all, there's a couple of holdovers from June that I'm not quite finished with because today is the last day of June and I will not finish either of these books today. And one of them wasn't even in my June TBR, but I received it as a gift, and I took it with me on the trip, and I've been reading You Like It Darker by Stephen King. And I will talk more about this on Friday because I think I will have finished it by then. I've been really enjoying this. This was a good choice. It may not seem like the most obvious choice to take on a mournful occasion, but it's very diverting, really fun. Some of it is pretty dark, but it's not that dark. I'll talk more about it on Friday, but I've been enjoying these stories a lot. And I want to wait till I can sum up my thoughts on the collection as a whole. I'm also still reading my June nonfiction selection, which is Creep by Myriam Gurba. It's a collection of essays. I did not take this book with me on the trip, so I just picked it back up last night. So this is just going to be a July book as well as a June book. But anyway, they are good, and I am going to continue with them, and I'll talk to them about that also on Friday Reads. So let's look at the new July selections, and I'm going to start. There's just 2 books that I'm really obligated to read because of BookTube prize judging, and everything else is my best intentions. So I do need to read 2 more books before I can do my rankings in this. Where are we at? We're in the semifinals of the BookTube prize. So I need to read House of Doors by Twan. And this was shortlisted. No, it wasn't shortlisted. It was longlisted for the Booker Prize last year. Probably going to start this week and try to, not get too close to the wire on finishing these books. And because the other one is pretty long, and that is Wellness by Nathan Hill. And this recently was an Oprah book. I have read another book of his in the past, but with both of these, I can't really discuss or review them until the end of the judging window, and then I will be able to tell you my thoughts on these and the other 4 books in my ranking pool. The next selection is this month's Shakespeare play. I am participating in well, we don't know how long it's going to be, more than a year, a couple of years, maybe more, the Bard Room on, boy, could I get this a more convoluted way of explaining it. There is an ongoing study of Shakespeare's plays. Melinda, at a web of stories, pulls one out of a hat every month, and then we have a Discord group called the Bard Room where we can discuss the play of the month. And July's play is The Merchant of Venice. And I read it back in college, so it is a reread. Don't remember a ton about it, except I know that it is a controversial play because of anti-Semitism and stereotypes of Jewish characters. It's been so long. I do remember discussing that in the college class, and I don't know when I read it again what I'll think, but I know it's controversial. So that's the July play, and so I'm excited to read that again and see how it sits with me today. And then there's a lot of rereads in this month. My band book club at the public library selected Candide. I have my old falling apart paperback of Candide, and I haven't gotten rid of it yet because it has all my little notes in it from when I was a student. And so I kind of want to, I'm not going to read this copy, but I kind of want to pair it with my new copy and just look at my little notes as I read. Because I did buy this nice new copy with the Chris Ware artwork and the lovely friendshipy flaps. And so I'm actually going to read my nice new fresh copy, but I just couldn't get rid of it, which kind of, yeah, I know it defies the purpose of getting yourself a new copy if you don't get rid of the old yellowy one. And I might let it go after this reread, because I don't need to keep, my notes aren't that precious that I need to keep them for all time, but I wanted to keep them at least through this reading, and then I will set it free. Okay, I just realized that I'm completely out of order. Clearly, on my cheat sheet, book number 1 was supposed to be Sense and Sensibility. It's Jane Austen July. It is clearly number 1 on the list. Did I follow my own list that I carefully rewrote because the first one was completely confusing and illegible? No, I didn't. Jane Austen July. There are 3 hosts: Claudia from Spinster's Library, Katie from Books and Things, and Marissa from Blatantly Bookish. I'll put a link to their channels below. And Jane Austen July comes around every year. I love Jane Austen, and sometimes I participate more or less. This one I'm going kind of light just because of the sheer amount of things I would like to get to this month, and I'm just feeling a little, every few months I have a little wave of feeling evented out, and I want to just pare it down a little bit. But I'm kind of on my own rotating perpetual Jane Austen reread plan, so I like to save one for when Jane Austen July comes around. And sometimes I do the extended prompts and suggestions, and sometimes I don't. So this year, I'm just going to commit to reading one novel. I did read a biography of Jane Austen earlier this year by Carol Shields that I really did enjoy. And so I feel like I get some kind of retroactive credit for reading the adjacent or the nonfiction piece that goes in these prompts. But I'm going to read Sense and Sensibility. That is the next one I had in mind in my eternal Austen rotation. And I did buy myself a new copy to match. I'm kind of putting together a set of the Penguin cloth bound, and so it isn't here yet, so I can't start it yet, but it should be here in the next day or two. And that is what I'm going to read for Jane Austen July. I also wore my Jane Austen shirt. I was all ready to lead with Jane Austen, and I just blew it, but here we go. Ta-da! It starts with Sense and Sensibility. It has all the novels. So I have my own reference guide to Jane Austen that I can wear at all times in case my brain continues to be in this type of disarray. Okay, I better double check this list and make sure I didn't do anything else out of order. I think we're okay. The next two books are buddy reads. I'm going to read these with Michael Clark, who you see in the comments as Book of Dust. Okay, the first one is Kiss of the Spiderwoman by Manuel, and I'm really hesitating on how to pronounce his last name. It's Puig. How do you say that? What is the Spanish pronunciation of that? So somebody help me out. I didn't look it up in advance, but I don't want to just say it and then I said it wrong. So I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name, but I love this edition. This was not easy to find. For a book that has had so many adaptations in the movies and on stage. Well, I guess it's only been a movie once, but I think they're going to do a new one. There's a stage show. There's going to be a movie of the stage show. But it was hard to find a good quality copy of the book. But I really like this one. And so I was inspired to read this book. I first thought about it when I went to that book festival and saw Justin Torres, and he talked about this as one of the inspirations that he was thinking about when he wrote Blackouts. And when you read Blackouts, you see that in action, because this is a book about two men in a South American prison. I believe, don't quote me on this because this is my foggy memory of what the book's about, but I think one of them is there for political reasons and the other one is there because he is gay, and that is illegal in that time and place. And it was written in the early 70s, I think. Let's see. It was, 1976, mid 70s. And so they're in a jail cell. They're not two people that would probably cross paths in life otherwise, but they form this bond of passing the time, and one of them is telling these stories that are movie plots. And so in Blackouts, there are also two men in kind of a suspended time and place together telling stories. And at one point in the book, they challenge each other to try to tell their stories in a movie format. So you can really see the nod to Kiss of the Spiderwoman and just sort of the intensity of being in a close proximity, kind of screening out the outside world. So I'm expecting that as I read it, I will probably see more echoes or how the two books have a strand between them. The other book that we are going to read together is a reread of Olive Kittredge. Well, I know it's a reread for me, and I think it is also for Michael. And so I reread the Lucy Barton books already this year in preparation for her new book that's coming out in, I think, September. And then I found out that Olive is in the book too. Like the Stroutoverse, the strands are getting more and more connected. And so now I want to read Olive Kittredge and Olive again. And so this is the month for Olive Kittredge. And I really loved this book when it came out. It wasn't long ago that I found my own hardback copy of it, because I think it was a library book when I first read it, because I didn't know what I was getting into. I think that was the second book I read by Elizabeth Strout. I think the first one was one of her earlier books, and I liked it okay. I can't remember which one it was. And then I read that, and that one kind of blew me away. Then I started reading all the Lucy books too, and the other Olive, and like ever since then, I've read everything that she has released since then. So one of my favorite authors, and the Lucy Barton reread was so rewarding that I'm expecting the same from the Olive reread as well. And then I will be all prepared for Tell Me Anything. And I'm so, excited about the good early buzz I'm hearing on this. I've heard a few people that either got advanced copies or, I don't know, the UK booktubers seem to have it already. Anyway, I've heard a few really good reviews and some possible Booker list, kind of buzz in the air. And she was on the Booker list for Oh William, and it made the short list. Oh, I love that book so much. So yay, Elizabeth. I hope it happens. All right, another book that I myself need to read from my other little reread it before the new release is Big Sky by Kate Atkinson. So I've been rereading the Jackson Brodie series in anticipation of the new one in September that is coming out. I took a month off because, so this is the fifth book. The first three books are really good, and then the fourth one's kind of a dud. And I mean, it's not terrible, but it's a weak link. And so I needed to just let that kind of clear the memory a little bit before I read Big Sky. I do recall enjoying this book a lot more than book 4, so I'm hoping that she's back in form, and then really I hope that the new one is really good too, because there's been a huge gap, and she's written some other things since the last time she came around to Jackson Brody. But so I'm gonna try to fit in Big Sky this month, if not in July and August. I have 2 months to play with before the new one comes out. But wait, there's more. Oh yes. I've had a personal goal to read at least one nonfiction book every month this year. Now, I know that doesn't sound like a ton of nonfiction, but it is a big step up for me, because I like nonfiction, but I'm a really heavy fiction reader, primarily. So I challenged myself to increase my amount of nonfiction this year, and I've been doing really well, and have read some excellent books. So it's been going along quite well. And I realized that I got in a panic the other night, because I was thinking about June, and for a minute I forgot about Creep, and I thought, I completely forgot to read a nonfiction book in June. But I didn't. I'm just not finished with it. So I'm going to continue with Creep, but my nonfiction selection for July is Liliana's Invincible Summer by Cristina Rivera Garza. So this is going to fulfill several personal goals. Nonfiction book. It's a recent award winner that I've really been wanting to get to. And on my little challenge from the public library, there's a spot for a Texas author, and I don't know if she's always lived in Texas, but she's here now, and because she's at the University of Houston, so she counts. So Texas author, and I talked about this in my most recent book haul. It's a memoir about Rivera Garza's attempt to find out more about what happened to her sister in July 1990. So it's a perfect book to read in July, and it's about her sister and her vibrant life that was ended way too soon by an abusive ex-boyfriend. And then I think that on one level she is trying to find out more about that exact case, but overall looking at the problem of gendered violence, violence against partners, against women. So it sounds intense, it sounds fascinating, it sounds sad. Probably not going to pick this up as my first book to read this month, because I need to kind of lighten up first a little bit, but I am going to read it this month for sure. Okay, now the rest of the books are the Mountains of Maybes, because I have a cartload of books that I want to get to, and my no, it wasn't serious, not even semi-serious. My completely fake announcement that in my last book haul that I'm just not going to order any books or buy any books the rest of the summer, that fell through spectacularly. It fell through like minutes after I said it, because I had to get a copy of Kiss of the Spiderwoman, and then it fell apart even more and just disintegrated, because things got rough, and might have been some stress ordering, and then a trip to my favorite bookstore just fell in my path that I wasn't even planning. So I have many excuses for why my cart is so full. But let's take a look at a few books I pulled. This is me today. This is Angelia on June 30th saying these are the books from my cart that I most want to get to. And that is highly subject to change as my moods change as well. But here's what I pulled and why. First of all, I have The Stranding by Kate Sawyer. I pulled this one because into every month something apocalyptic must fall. And also a little murder must fall, but I've covered that with Big Sky. But something weird or speculative or apocalyptic must also fall. And so The Stranding is the perfect choice. And I haven't had the book very long. It was a gift from Marcia Johansson, but I've been hearing about it for like over a year from Marcia, who keeps saying, oh, you've really got to read this book. I think you're going to love it. So I really want to read it. And also, I did not take it with me on this particular trip because I was finishing some other books, but I do have another trip coming up later this month to visit my mom, and it's a nice kind of airplane-sized book. So if I haven't read it before then, it's definitely going on that trip. So The Stranding for apocalyptic fun. as the, well, I don't know. I don't know how fun apocalypses are, but they're fun for me to read about. Then the next one is BookTube's driving me crazy, and it's Orbital by Samantha Harvey, which I bought because I kept hearing about it. And there was like a wave last winter of people talking about Orbital, so I bought it. Haven't read it. And then now there's a new wave. A whole bunch of people started talking about it again. And it's another one. I saw a couple of really good videos about the Orwell Political Fiction Prize. I don't know exactly if that's the right name. And the short list was really good. And this was one of the books. And that made me really curious. Like, well, how is this political? Now I want to read it and find out. Because it's a bunch of astronauts orbiting and looking at the Earth. So, I don't know. So I have to read to find out. And it sounds kind of contemplative and meditative. And that is a certain mood that I'm not always in. But when I am, I want a really good book to match it. All right, the next one is just guilty because it's just been sitting there and I keep picking it up and it never makes the cut. And that's The Road to Dalton by Shannon Bowring. Again, I'm looking at this and thinking travel sized. These two would be good together. You know, we've got like a realistic and a speculative, and they're both kind of light. So I'm definitely thinking about that. This is kind of the people in a small town, realistic fiction, family dramas, and that kind of stuff. Wasn't that a great description? Now you just know everything what it's about, don't you? And then finally we have a book that I keep saying I'm about to read and haven't done it yet is Wandering Stars by Tommy Orange. I think I keep coming up to this and not reading it because things have been kind of tense the past couple months, and I know that this is a hard-hitting book, but I really do want to read this and enjoy it. So this is definitely on my shortest of my really super long list. This is up at the top. And then new thing that's distracting me is Clear by Carys Davies that I received as a gift. I got the 3 books that my daughter picked out, and I've almost finished reading one of them, the Stephen King, which might be the longest one in the batch. And the other 2 are just kind of doing siren calls at me. We have Clear and Real Americans. So it could happen. It could happen with anything on that card. The card's just back there. I can feel it rebuking me right now, all the books that didn't get picked for this video. So we'll see what happens. But that's a plan, right? Let me know what you're planning to read in July. Any thoughts on any of these books that I have mentioned, or if you have read them. And I will be back. I'm going to do a couple videos this week. Yeah, I want to do some kind of a either mid-year freak out or best of so far kind of deal. And also the tag that I was tagged in about Alice. So I will be back with that, and I will get back onto the Friday reads. I hope that you have a great week, and I will see you soon. Bye-bye.